The rain was coming down in torrents that night. It was one of those torrential downpours that seemed to wash away all traces of the world. The streets, slick with water, glistened under the dim glow of the streetlights. I had always found solace in the sound of rain, but that night it felt different, almost unsettling. I was driving along a narrow, winding road that cut through a dense forest. The rain battered my car relentlessly, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. The windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the deluge, their rhythmic squeaking adding an eerie soundtrack to the night. I had been on the road for hours, navigating unfamiliar terrain as I ventured deeper into the forest. My reason for this late-night journey was simple. I was visiting an old friend, Emily, who had recently moved to a remote cabin in the heart of these woods. She had always been the adventurous type, seeking solitude and a connection to nature that I could never fully understand. But she had called me, her voice quivering with an unspoken fear, and I couldn't ignore her plea for help. As I drove, the forest seemed to close in around me, its thick canopy of trees blocking out any trace of the outside world. The rain continued to pour, creating a disorienting tunnel of water and darkness. I could barely make out the road ahead, and my grip on the steering wheel tightened with every passing moment. The forest had an unsettling presence, an ancient and primal energy that was impossible to ignore. The tall trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches dripping with water, and the shadows they cast danced eerily in the dim glow of my headlights. I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was watching me, as though it had its own secrets to protect. The road wound on, twisting and turning with no end in sight. My headlights illuminated the road just far enough to see the rain-slicked pavement, and the forest beyond remained a shroud of darkness. I tried to call Emily again, but my phone had no signal. I felt a growing sense of unease, but I couldn't turn back now. I had to reach her. Finally, I spotted a break in the trees, a small clearing that seemed to come out of nowhere. The cabin, a rustic structure of weathered wood, sat nestled in the clearing. It was the only light for miles, a beacon in the storm. My relief was palpable as I pulled up to the cabin, the rain pounding on the roof like a barrage of drums. I rushed out of the car and ran to the cabin's front door, knocking loudly. My heart pounded in my chest and I could hardly catch my breath. I waited, the seconds stretching into eternity. There was no answer, only the relentless sound of rain. Desperation overtook me and I tried the door. To my surprise, it was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside, my voice calling out for Emily. The cabin was dimly lit and I could see no signs of life. The air inside was heavy and musty, as though it had been abandoned for some time. I moved cautiously through the cabin, my footsteps echoing in the empty rooms. The place had an air of neglect, as though it had been left to the mercy of the elements. Emily's belongings were scattered haphazardly, and a sense of disarray hung in the air. I made my way to the bedroom, my heart in my throat as I pushed open the door. The room was empty, save for an unmade bed and a small flickering candle on the nightstand. It cast eerie shadows on the walls and the room seemed frozen in time. I knew I had to search the rest of the cabin, but dread gnawed at my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. As I continued to explore, I found a diary lying on a table, its pages open to an entry from a few days prior. I began to read. "Rain has been falling for days," Emily had written. "It's unrelenting, like a never-ending torrent of tears from the sky. It's as though the forest itself is weeping. I can't shake this feeling of unease. It's as though something is out there, lurking in the darkness, watching me. I don't know what to do." I felt a chill run down my spine as I read Emily's words. The diary entry was filled with a sense of growing fear and isolation, and I couldn't help but wonder if the forest had taken its toll on her. I needed to find her and get her out of here. But where could she be? As I left the bedroom, I heard a sound, a faint whisper carried on the wind. It was Emily's voice, soft and trembling. It seemed to be coming from outside. I followed the sound, my footsteps carrying me back into the pouring rain. The clearing was empty and I called out to Emily, searching for any sign of her. The rain soaked through my clothes, but I hardly noticed. The forest seemed to close in around me, and the trees swayed in the wind like ancient sentinels. I followed the sound of her voice deeper into the forest, my heart racing. The terrain grew rough, the muddy ground making each step a struggle. The forest had grown eerily silent, save for the rain, and I had a growing sense that I was being led into a trap. The whispering voice continued, growing louder and more distinct. I realized it was coming from a small, dilapidated shack hidden among the trees. I approached cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior, and there, huddled in a corner, was Emily. Her eyes were wide with fear, her hair plastered to her face by the rain. She seemed to be in a state of shock, unable to speak or move. I rushed to her side, my hands trembling as I tried to calm her. "Emily, it's me," I said. "I've come to help you. We need to get out of here." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of relief and terror. "He's out there," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. "He's always out there." I didn't know who she was talking about, but I knew we needed to leave immediately. I helped her to her feet, and together we made our way back to the cabin. As we stepped inside, I locked the door behind us, though I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest itself was watching and waiting. As the storm raged on outside, Emily finally began to speak, her words coming out in a rushed, fevered torrent. She told me about the cabin, how it had been her sanctuary in the woods, but she also spoke of the relentless rain, which had been falling for weeks, and the sense of unease that had settled over her. "Every night I hear him," she said, her voice shaking. "He's out there in the rain, calling to me. He wants to take me away, to make me a part of the forest." I didn't know what to make of her words, but I knew she was in a state of distress. I tried to calm her, to reassure her that we would find a way out of this place. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was horribly wrong. We sat in the dimly lit cabin, the rain pouring outside, and I couldn't help but wonder if the forest itself held some dark secret. Emily's fear was palpable, and I knew that we needed to leave this place as soon as possible. The storm raged on into the night, and we huddled in the cabin waiting for the rain to let up. Emily's fear was contagious, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was closing in around us, that it held some ancient, malevolent presence. As the hours passed, we heard a sound outside, a strange, echoing noise that seemed to come from the depths of the forest. It was a mournful, haunting sound that sent shivers down my spine. Emily clung to me, her eyes wide with terror. "He's out there," she whispered. "He's calling for me." I rushed to the window and peered outside, but all I could see was the endless curtain of rain. The forest was shrouded in darkness, and the eerie sound seemed to be coming from all around us. We waited in dread, the sound growing louder and more insistent. It was as though the forest itself was beckoning us, trying to lure us into its depths. I knew we had to leave, to get away from this place as quickly as possible. As the storm finally began to subside, we made a run for it. The rain still fell, but with less intensity, and the forest seemed to part before us, as though it was reluctantly allowing us to leave. We reached my car, drenched and shivering, and I fumbled with the keys as Emily urged me to hurry. The engine roared to life, and we sped away from the cabin in the forest, leaving it behind in the rain. I didn't look back, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was still there, watching us, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to venture into its depths. The memory of that rainy night still haunts me, a reminder that sometimes the natural world can be as unforgiving and relentless as any horror from the depths of our darkest nightmares.